Kevin Burkhardt says the Chargers offensive line is a problem. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Not another injury.
Just an unmitigated disaster.
Hold up. It's the Chargers squad. Everything Los Angeles Chargers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the City of Angels. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Chargers Squad Show, starting now.
Daniel, what's up?
Oh, man.
We're here to join you. Don't worry.
Hey. Do I have to?
Not going to leave you sitting solo to go through this disaster, as you pointed out. Welcome to the Locked On Chargers Squad Show. Pete Fox, Kenyon Barner, Daniel Wade. I've been covering sports in LA since 2007 for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio. KB, 10 years in the league. Sure, he went through some disasters like this at least once or twice. And Daniel Wade, co-host of the Locked On Chargers daily podcast on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. Well, I mean, last week we couldn't find much that was positive, and I kind of feel like this is a little bit worse. I don't know where to start. I guess we could start when it was okay with the Chargers in the first quarter, 10 plus minutes of possession time. They did get a gift that turned into a touchdown, but from there it was all just ugly and awful. And I don't know, on the other, you use this probably a lot, Daniel, during the daily podcast with the turning point of the game. We talk about the turning point player of the game, and then what we're talking about specifically with regard to this game. Sometimes it's hard to find the turning point. That was not the case today. I don't know that I've seen such a dramatic turning point than I did see today when Quentin Johnston made that reception and then fumbled, and the Washington Commanders scored 27 unanswered. And here we are talking about this, D-Wade. Like, are you surprised? I mean, obviously you're surprised, but did you see it going that way that quickly?
No, and I think that's because of what Jim Harbaugh showed us in his first season, right? When the Chargers would start to have these games start to unravel, the main difference between him and maybe Brandon Staley or whoever it was before that was the Chargers being able at times to be able to rein it in a little bit. I mean, you look back to that Kansas City Chiefs game in week 1 where you have Patrick Mahomes, scoring in every drive of the second half, right? And the Chargers totally blowing it at the end of the first half of that game and immediately giving up a touchdown to make it 13-12 in week 1. That game, they were able to hold off the charging, right? They were able to collect themselves and be able to answer the call and be able to continue to play winning football after that. In this game, it was the complete opposite. And I mean, as much as the Quentin Johnston part of things was the turning point, where it absolutely was, the Chargers didn't score a single point after that. There was multiple points in this game, including, the block punt at the end of the first half where it's like, hey, this is a chance to get yourself out of that, get yourself out of the funk. And that feels like another big turning point.
KB, what frustrates you most about this game other than just the fact that it was an ugly loss?
The amount of undisciplined football that I witnessed. From the Charger standpoint, this looked like a high school game to me. The amount of missed tackles, the amount of penalties, constantly self-inflicted wounds, keeping you out of the game and not allowing you to get any sort of momentum generated. This was a disappointing, disheartening. I would have been better off watching paint dry today. This was terrible. This was an absolute terrible display of football all around the board, all across the board. And I think this game is really more about, in my opinion, more about the Commanders being able to play as well as they did, more than it is about the Chargers, because we can point to injuries, but the Commanders came out and played ball. They never took their foot off the gas pedal, and every opportunity they got, they capitalized on it. Every penalty that kept them on the field, they turned into points. This was just, again, a terrible display of football, and 2 weeks in a row. This kind of reminds me of Penn State a little bit, watching them lose last week to Oregon, and then watching what happened against UCLA, then watching what happened with the Chargers versus the Giants last week, then coming out. It was just not this. It seemed like the wind has been taken out of their sail a little bit.
Yeah, so Quentin Johnston fumbled, and then Krusky Merritt took it down and ran around the end into the end zone, completely untouched. Tom Brady called it poor execution in the D gap because there was nobody there. And then Jakrosky Merritt did it again, the exact same thing. And I don't think we've seen defensive breakdowns like that this whole season, D-Wade.
Man, I wanted to ask Kenyon, how many of those did you get, man? Just no containment on the outside, and you get to run basically the same exact play and go untouched into the end zone. I mean that is something that's inexcusable. The Chargers were, out leveraged. The Commanders knew it. And when you can't, keep contained and set the edge, like, it just makes me think about Khalil Mack, right? And like just what he brings to the table and what you're missing without him. But in that play specifically, it wasn't always the edge defender that was supposed to be the last guy on the line. The Chargers just didn't have numbers there. The Commanders took advantage of it. And you have to be able in that, situation, get off a block, get the edge, get him to go back inside. Like, you're not going to find two easier rushing touchdowns this season than those two that seemed almost identical to each other.
D-Wade, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, okay? You don't get that. It does not happen. It rarely happens once, let alone twice. It's like watching a lightning strike twice in the same spot. It just doesn't happen.
Well, and look what happened at the goal line for the Chargers. You know what I mean? Like, when the Commanders got down there, you have two plays where you have a guy untouched in the end zone, and then the Chargers try to run one time inside the 5-yard line and lose 5 yards, just getting blown off the line of scrimmage. Like, I think that shows you kind of just how important red zone efficiency is. Chargers turn it over there, obviously, once. They just haven't been good in that spot all year where the Commanders have been, and that's just, one of the big differences in this game.
Yeah, that was the other huge part of this game where the Chargers had a little bit of life, a little bit of opportunity there. The fumble by Krusky Merritt, and then they kind of march it down. Keenan Allen with a couple of nice first down receptions. Kamani Vidal was running very physically, not Austin Eckler like Kenyon Barner, but close. Close. He was running the ball very physically, and then he came up short, lost some yards. Look, from a X's and O's standpoint, sometimes I feel like I know more than I do, but one of the things that seemed really obvious to me right in that one play, KB, tell me if you saw this too, they lined up strong side right and then pulled the tackle to the left, which Tom Brady pointed out. He's like, I never like pulling the tackle on the goal line. And I'm like, and they were strong side right. Why are you running left? It made no sense to me.
Sometimes you want to do something different, and to Tom's point, you open up a huge gap in a very short area. Like, there's no space. It's hard enough to score in the goal line, but when you start opening up gaps in your offensive line and allowing defenders to run through, you create an absolute nightmare for yourself, and that's what we've seen on that particular play.
Yeah, and then the tipped pass, looking at the replay, Daniel, it was like he had Quentin Johnston open on a slant pattern, and for whatever reason he was locked on Keenan Allen, which is only nothing wrong with that, but it's only surprising because it seems like Herbert can make that call when he saw, he should have seen Quentin Johnston there on that slant pattern. Again, I don't know that it changes much. It gives them a better opportunity to win this game, but that little series right there in the red zone was just tough.
Yeah, and I think it's just, it's all a byproduct of just the inefficiencies and the flaws in the offense, right? Like, Justin Herbert feels like he has to pull the trigger right there quickly to Keenan Allen because of the lack of protection that he's had. Like, this is something where he thinks, if I don't let this ball go right now, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to get hit, and maybe that turns into a turnover, right? So, I mean, 3 of Justin Herbert's 4 interceptions so far this season have been batted balls. Obviously, it's an issue, but when you're in the red zone too, like, you throw one high to Tyler Conklin on 4th down, that's hot. It bounces off his head, right? You throw one low to try to save Keenan Allen and potentially throw a ball over the middle that doesn't get batted up and intercepted in the red zone, and it gets hit by a defender, who made a good play. That's good timing by the defender. I mean, Justin Herbert obviously locked in on Keenan Allen. The coverage didn't show that. I mean, Keenan Allen was open. He threw to an open guy. So even though Quentin Johnston was open, maybe if he throws it to him, it doesn't get batted down. But, like, I think it is more of a byproduct of Justin Herbert having that ball leave the center's hands and hit his own hands and feel immediately like, I need to get rid of this right now, or we lose this touchdown opportunity, because then I'm taking a hit and potentially having a worse play.
But D-Wade, we talked about this last week. You can see the antsiness of Herbert in the pocket playing against the Giants last week, and it's carryover into this week. When you are at that quarterback spot and you are getting hit, your constant pressure in your face, there is a clock that starts to speed up in your head. You begin to get uncomfortable. And to Herbert's defense, he didn't have time. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have a lot of time all the night. So to your point, you're absolutely right. It is due to the lack of protection that we do have up front. And that will cause a quarterback to make a lot of unnecessary mistakes that they wouldn't necessarily make if they had guys in front of them that they recognize the last names on the back.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel very sorry and bad for Justin Herbert. You know, just empathetic to what he's going through right now. Yeah. Like that series you talked about where they go for it on 4th down and he throws that fastball to Conklin, which, you know, wasn't a terrible pass. It was too hard. I'll give him that. But I don't understand the play call. Like, really? Conklin, of all the guys, you know, McConkey had a decent game and he was available and had some nice catches on that specific drive, an 18-yard run from Herbert. But they decided to do that on 4th and 2, or, you know, even a running play would have been better than that in that specific situation. I didn't understand the play call. Again, another one that made me go, what are they doing there? But it just seemed like they were snake bit throughout the entire second half.
It wasn't too bad though, Pete, because if he catches it, we're having a different conversation, right?
It hits him in the face mask.
Yeah, it went through his hands. If that's the play that you want to call, put a pass catching tight end. You have got Gaston right there, right? You have him on your team. Use him. He's a pass catching tight end. We have this in the NFL really on all levels. Know your personnel. Know who's in the game, know who you're calling to play for. And if it's a gotta have a situation, then I gotta have a guy in there that I know is confident in his hands. I wouldn't have put Conklin in that situation. Again, it was a fastball. I don't want to take that. It was, but at the end of the day, it hits you in your hands and hits you in your face.
Well, and it's just the thing is to your point, like in that 4th down, what happened on that play before he drops it, right? The Chargers are all huddled up. They don't have enough players on the field on a 4th and 2 in a huge moment where you have a chance to swing the balance back in your favor. And who's running onto the field late? It's Tyler Conklin. So when you're the one running onto the field late, when you're the one that's sitting there and it goes through your hands, it's hard for me to put that on Justin Herbert. I'm supposed to think the guy that just had the ball go through his hands and ran onto the field late, didn't know he was supposed to be there, is the guy that's locked in enough to throw the ball to on 4th down? No, like in a perfect world, obviously, you take a time out there and settle things down, I think would be, you know, the biggest, probably the fairest kind of regret there, because, I mean, obviously things were a little bit scrambled, but you're an undisciplined football team to get to that spot to begin with. The only reason you're rushing around and trying to have a timeout is you don't have enough guys on the field on 4th and 2. Like, these are just inexcusable things you didn't think you would have to worry about with Jim Harbaugh, and also things you thought Jim Harbaugh would be able to kind of cure a little bit. But you're talking about back-to-back weeks now where, you know, you have multiple turnovers, you have 10 plus penalties. Like, this is just, you can't beat bad teams with it, as we saw last week. You definitely can't beat good teams, and the Commanders were the better team on Sunday.
Yeah, Bryce said it right here.
Sorry about that, Pete.
Bryce was just jumping on Brady's comment. Why are you throwing a heater from 5 yards away? Be smart. He's had that issue since 2021. But I agree with you guys both just said this. When the pressure is, you know, in your face on a regular basis, your clock is off.
It's 4th down in a tight window. Like, we're not talking about a lollipop throw right now to a wide open player. It's a tight window on a 4th down that you have to save the game. I don't care how fast it is. This has been his quarterback since March. If you can't catch the Justin Herbert fastball at this point with both your hands on it, if it's a bad throw and hot, I get it. You have both hands in front of your face mask. That's where you want it. Like, and so I'm not going to make, you know, Justin Herbert obviously take a little off. It's 4th down and a tight window throw. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to put that on him when it's like, hey, you know, catch the ball. Like, and I'm not the guy to say that, but like in that moment, you got to catch that ball for your team and make a big play in a big moment.
D-Wade, you may not be the guy to say it, but I can say it. Catch the ball. Yes, that's the bottom line. That's what we get paid to do. And trust me, I played with quarterbacks who throw heaters. And you could be right, and you're like, whoa, take something off of that. It happens. But at the end of the day, my job as an offensive player, as a receiver, as a running back, is to catch the ball regardless of how fast it's thrown. Where if it hits my hands, I got to catch it. I have to. But to your point, D-Wade, this is a guy that was running on the field late anyway. So already you're scrambling mentally. You're not locked into what it's a bad play to start. You know what I'm saying? You can't hit the reset button. You can't start over. You can't. Now I'm frantic. I'm trying to get on the field. I'm trying to get lined up. Now I'm worried about, damn, I'm late on the field. My coach is going. There's a lot going through your head. I've been in those spots, right? It's hard to execute when I'm already in a frantic mind space running onto the field.
Yeah, there was a lot going wrong right there. But I kind of put it back to the line really because he didn't have enough time, and he feels desperate. I mean, he absolutely felt like that and looked like that many times, and it's getting worse. Like it was bad last week. I feel like it's getting worse where the pressure, he's just scrambling mentally and physically all the time, right? The opportunities where the pocket doesn't break down for him are few and far between. And that also kind of, when it doesn't break down for him, it almost seems like he's surprised, like, oh, I've got a couple of seconds here to find somebody. And he did, to his credit. He didn't have a horrible statistic game. Where do you go? 22 of 29, not a lot of yards, 166, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But yeah, it just feels like he is playing shorthanded. And, many people, we haven't really gotten into it. We will after the break, but so many people, the O-line was horrendous. Marlowe Wax lost us the game. Yes, right. It is a problem, as Kevin Burkhardt obviously stated. Yeah. There's an issue with the offensive line. We've been talking about it for a while. So I don't know how to fix it. We'll try to fix it. We'll talk about it more after this because it's out there and we got to be here for at least 55 minutes. So we're going to talk about the line next. It's the Locked On Chargers Squad Show on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Squad Show is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood. Okay, let me try that again. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of your home, whether it's a sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town or the coldest beer on game day, or the beloved local chain that's been there for a long time and it's rooted in your community for years. The one that sounds like I've never been there, but it sounds like a lot of fun to me that they give me a list here of places to mention, but just the name of this place sounds like a place that I would like. The Los Angeles Ale Works is one of these businesses that accepts Square. So if you're a proud partner and you want to be involved, then head over to the Los Angeles Ale Works and use Square to pay for your meal or your beer or whatever. They have more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. So the Chargers lose this one ugly. They scored 10 in the first half and then scoreless, 27-10 the final. Their first home loss. They're now 3-2, like the Commanders, who came to play, as you said, D-Wade, during the week with our weekday show. We talked about, Jaden Daniels being from San Bernardino. Obviously a lot of family in the audience. And, it seemed like he was playing with a little chip on his shoulder. You're not surprised by that at all, because when these guys come home in front of their home fans, they want to play a little bit better. 15 of 26, 231. I haven't watched a lot of Jaden Daniels, but I'm not surprised by that performance at all. Effective day running the ball, really. When he got into trouble, he was able to get out of it with his legs. And I know that's his MO. That's what we get from him a lot. But did you, when you look at this performance, did you think that it was worth an A rating, or was it maybe a little bit off going 15 of 26?
I mean, for Jaden Daniels, I think the thing about this game is if he had kind of one of those games you saw from him last year where he's just untouchable and everything he's throwing is finding its receiver, I think you could stomach that in a, 30-27 kind of shootout where you're answering the bell. They're just making better plays, but you're not necessarily giving it to them. I think especially in the second half, Jaden Daniels used his legs a lot more, and that has been something the Chargers that has just killed them the entire season. Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, you name it, Jackson Dart last week. Like, that has been something. They went into this game allowing quarterbacks to run for over 40 yards per game on average. And in this one, you give up 8 for 39, which, is right on cue. So I think that, they had something. They had a plan in the first half that was working pretty well. The Commanders didn't score in this game until that Quentin Johnston fumble. So the game plan was good. It did feel to me, though, that as the game went on, as the Chargers offense kind of continued to blunder, what he did a great job of was taking advantage of that. And I think that's especially in the second half, not making the big mistake for Jaden Daniels, doing enough to keep your team on the field and run a bunch of clock, especially on that last drive. I thought it was impressive. I didn't think he did anything, world beating, but he did enough to win the game, and he played winning football, which is something the Chargers didn't.
Yeah.
You know who did? Ja'Cory at the running back.
Yeah, man.
I was going to just ask you about that. He had a fantastic game. That guy was unstoppable. You couldn't get him.
He had an absolute phenomenal day. But this, again, going back to last week, outside runs, being able to get outside, it's becoming an Achilles heel of this defense. Yep. And when you look at what the Commanders did, they attacked out. Listen, they ran the ball inside and outside. I don't even want to just keep it to an outside run game. They did what they wanted to do on the ground. Despite his fumble, he had a absolutely spectacular day on the ground, 111 yards on 14 carries. The dude was averaging 9.2 or 9.3 yards a carry. This is the NFL, disgusting. People. This is not high school. This is not college. He was averaging a first down every time he touched the ball. That's incredible. So outside of Jaden running the ball, the real issue was that we couldn't stop them from running the ball at any spot on the field.
Back-to-back 160 rushing yards or more that they've given up on the ground. And I love Khalil Mack. It's not just a missing Khalil Mack problem. That's an entire schematic. It's an entire defense. It's an entire kind of discipline type of situation. And that was something the Chargers have faced a lot, was teams attacking the edges because they were soft on the edges before, which is why, that's what Bud Dupree is here for. He's an okay pass rusher. He's supposed to be a, mean edge defending edge rusher, and that's what he is, and he does a good job of that most time. But the Chargers do have issues in the secondary. Like, it's not just about the defensive line when you're seeing these rushing totals, right? It's other teams making everyone else make those tackles as well, getting your corners in situations one-on-one where they have to make a tackle, testing the edges. And I mean, back-to-back weeks of teams rushing for you over 160 yards. I mean, Jesse Minter has done a lot of really great things, but this feels like a true kryptonite for this defense right now, amongst other things, bad penalties on both sides of the ball. But man, if they're going to let every team they go up against hit 150 rushing yards, it's going to be a very, very long season.
It's going to be a long season.
Yeah. After Krosky Merritt's second touchdown, I wrote down all the plays because I'm like, this is where they have to answer right now. If they don't answer, they're done. So here's how it went. And my title for this series was, where they needed a response, they got a brutal response. First down, sack, unblocked, pressure right at the gap. I think it was the B gap right at Herbie. Second down, completion to Quentin Johnston, negated by a holding penalty on Pipkins. 2nd and 28, another completion to Keenan Allen. Illegal formation, 2nd and 3. Handoff, gain of 4, 3rd and 29. Pass to Allen, gain of 6. So that's kind of, to me, the story of this game. When they needed something to happen, they couldn't make anything happen. And not only could they not make it happen, they just kept penalties or, those were too tough, like deep in their own end zone or deep in their own territory. Made too tough first down pass.
They made something happen, just not the way they wanted it to, just not the way they needed it.
So we've had a bunch of comments about the line. I made the note again. The Deculus got burned at least once or twice. Question here from Jaguar Man F type. Why did Deculus even start over Jamar Sawyer, who has proven he can handle the job? That's kind of a coin flip. Does that surprise either one of you guys?
I mean, a little surprising just because they had him working out there last week, and it seemed clear last week Deculus wasn't going to be the option, so I thought they might go in and try Jamari Sawyer there. But, I think the hard thing is, Kenyon, is, then Mekhi Becton's out of this game with a hand injury. So, who's going in for him? It would normally be Jamari Sawyer, but Jamari Sawyer's playing right tackle now because Trey Pipkins left the game. So now you have, Jamari Sawyer playing right tackle and then Foster Sarell playing right guard. And it's just I'm a little surprised they didn't try that out to begin with, but I don't necessarily think that was the difference in the game.
You have a lot of guys playing in positions that they are not accustomed to playing in. There's not a lot of two-way guys at the offensive line spot. That's kind of a rarity, right? When you have a guy that can effectively do someone else's job or have a secondary job that he's just as effective as at his primary. So what we're seeing right now with the Chargers, this is going to be an issue when you have Pipkins and you have Mekhi Becton going in and out of the game consistently. You don't get a rhythm. You don't have a flow. Then you're bringing guys in. Then you're expecting them to do a job that the starters can't even do. This is going to be an issue as long as we are not healthy at the offensive line spot. And that's a clear picture that's being painted. We aren't healthy, and we're going to have to get back and go to them streets and try and find something that works, because I don't think we have anything in-house right now that is going to get the Chargers back on the right foot.
Yeah, the only thing that will help the Chargers right now is time and a worse opponent, which could be the Dolphins. I mean, that could be a little bit of a panacea for them.
You lost to the Giants last week, Pete. You lost to the Giants last week, and what did the Giants do this week? The Giants went and lost to the Saints. And what did the Saints do? They turned Jackson Dart over a bunch of times, right? Like, if we're doing, transitive properties here and wins, like, it's not looking great right now. The only thing the Chargers have going for them is the Broncos beat the Eagles and the Chargers beat the Broncos, or the the Chargers better than the Eagles. I'm going to say no on that. But man, like, the offensive line, it's untenable. Like, every defensive front that goes up against this offensive line, and you had two legitimate, stud-laced, freaky kind of defensive fronts the last 2 weeks between Denver and New York, who all have a ton of talent out there.
Yeah.
This is not a team that's known for its notorious pass rush, and you would have thought they were playing, the Broncos again or the Giants again. It almost feels like it doesn't matter who they're going up against. You're going to still have the same issues. And I mean, to Kenyon's point, yeah, you can move guys around, and like, I'd say, hey, Jamari Sawyer, he did play well as a left tackle as a rookie. I'm willing to give it a shot. Be careful putting all your eggs in that basket and thinking that's going to save you. Like, forget flexibility and people being able to play more than one position. I'll take a dude who can play one position at an average level, right? Like, I don't need you to be an all-pro left tackle and an all-pro right guard. I need just an average right guard and be that and be good at it. So I think when you keep trying to move all these guys around, to Kenyon's point, it's like, it's so hard to do that. And you just don't have the guys that are even playing their own positions well enough to try to move and go do something else better.
Not only that, D-Way, when you're constantly moving guys around and treating this like musical chairs, what is that doing to your quarterback psyche? What is that doing? What is that making? We talked about that clock. It's going off a hell of a lot faster now, because I don't trust what's in front of me. I don't trust it. I don't feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable. It is a bad equation that the Chargers are working on right now, and we don't have a solution and we don't have an answer for it.
Here's something we haven't talked about in a while. Move the Chargers back to San Diego already, at least when we can be completely injured and cursed in front of real fans.
There were no real fans in San Diego. It was always a away game when it was a home game.
Oh, San Diego is different.
No.
Hey, I'm a San Diego guy. I got to stand up for my city here. Obviously, we're that's beating such a dead horse there that there's nothing that's going to come out of it, fault on all sides. But like, I do think that though, even in this game again, you're seeing a home stadium that I wasn't in the building, but it doesn't feel like the Chargers still continue to have a home field advantage, which is something they struggled with at times in San Diego against certain opponents, right? When you had the Raiders or someone like that, the really strong fan bases would travel and take the queue over sometimes. But you just don't have, I think, the same kind of baseline level that you had in San Diego, and that was something that was built over 50 years, right? Like, it wasn't always packed to the brim, but I was there plenty of times when it was rocking, and I think that's just the one thing where it's like, man, you're dealing with so much the Chargers offenses anyways. And you can't even get your own crowd kind of quiet on big-time offensive possessions because you don't have the numbers there specifically. Yeah. So San Diego or LA, the one thing that's kind of sure right now is the Chargers don't have a legitimate home field advantage that is giving them any sort of bump in these games.
We're getting some run from Chiefs fan 15 who said, quote, I thought you guys had the coaching thing fixed with Harbaugh. And then he says, you guys all loved Conklin this offseason, and then 12 laughy emojis. I don't know that we loved him. We were talking about Will Dissly quite a bit. I don't know that we loved Conklin.
I mean, the thing is Tyler Conklin was a warm body who, if you actually looked at the numbers, had one drop the last 2 seasons, right? So the thought process was, okay, at least you got a dude who can catch the ball when it's thrown his way. That was like the big kind of saving grace from Tyler Conklin, who doesn't do anything as a blocker or a receiver that makes him special. Is just give me someone who can do the bare minimum, and it looked like he could do that. That has been the furthest thing from the case through 5 games, and I just think the reasons for not having a Rondé Gadsden on the field instead of Tyler Conklin in any sort of situation where that guy could be getting the ball, the reasons for keeping Conklin on the field, it'd be really hard to make a convincing argument to me, at least.
All right. After the break, we're going to let the excuse train run through the station here for a little bit, because we got one good one that I like. So we'll play the excuse game. And then we have one positive comment as well. So we'll get to those after the break. It's the Locked On Chargers Squad Show on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, where you can find Daniel and David Monday through Friday with the Locked On Daily Chargers podcast. By the way, dude, congratulations. What did you guys have, a 37,000 view episode this week? That was amazing.
Man. Hey, shout out to the everydayers out there. We've done put in a lot of work to get to that one. Now that did come from a game that they won, so if they could give me more big time wins to have 37,000 viewed YouTube post game shows, that would be great. Instead, tonight after this show, obviously later on tonight, we'll be doing another post game show talking about it as a disaster that probably won't get 37,000. But shout out to the network, shout out to the everydayers and just being there for the good and the bad, because a lot of them still show up even after the really bad games like this.
Oh yeah, it could be bigger today because people are
could be.
Fingers crossed.
All right, today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Squad Show is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. I would love to tell you that some Charger moved the game forward today, but I can't. I mean, we could say that, it was nice to see Ladd McConkey get his first touchdown of the season. That moved the game forward. That moved the first quarter forward. From there, it kind of went south. Krosky Merritt for the Commanders moved the game forward without a doubt. So we'll mention him. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Chargers get pushed around here, and we're trying to find some positivity, and the positivity came in a comment from Guy Pearson. I like Guy because he has just a name on his thing. O-line and errors were an issue, but can we talk about the lack of holding calls on the Washington Commanders versus the called on us? They were all game long. So there we go. Uncalled holding penalties against the Chargers is what cost us this game. I wish it was that simple, Guy. I mean, yeah, I saw some of them, but I wouldn't say it was a deciding factor in this one.
Listen, you could call holding on almost every single play in the NFL if you really wanted to.
No doubt. It's like basketball, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the amount of calls that we would have needed to win this game, we weren't going to get. So we can't put it on that.
Here's Tay, 3-2, but 3-0 in the division. Remember
I like it, Tay.
No.
I like it, Tay.
Not now, Tay. Yeah, it feels like all the goodwill that was built up with 3 divisional wins. It just feels like that all went out the window. Like 2 weeks later, man, like you're on such a high, and then you come crashing down to earth in the realest way possible. Obviously, it's a war of attrition, and the Chargers are as banged up as you could be over the last 3 weeks. But there's nothing from that to take, though, and be like, okay, well, Khalil Mack's not coming back next week. Hopefully Joe Alt's back next week, so Justin Herbert can at least trust his blind side that he's not going to get blasted from behind. But at the same time, man, I don't know if you can complain about officiating when you're the team who has, 25 penalties over the last 2 weeks. You need to focus on yourself, not committing penalties and making insanely dumb decisions, and not worried about what's being called on the other team or not.
But D Wade, you gotta find a silver lining in the dark cloud, right?
I'm thinking, Kenny, filibuster for me for a few minutes, and I'll try to see if I can find a silver lining.
You gotta find. So listen, I'm right.
I'm gonna need a magnifying glass.
But it's there. Tay's not completely wrong. We are still in a good spot, right?
I don't think that. I think that was sarcastic from Tay. I don't think he's really feeling good about the 3-0 start in the division at this point. I mean, the only thing good you could say about the Chargers the last 2 weeks is at least you lost to NFC teams, which factor in less than tiebreakers down the road. Your AFC record is still perfect. Please bring me an AFC team, because that's the only team the Chargers can beat right now.
Well, how about this, KB? You wanted more running. Omarion, 12 carries for 44 yards, but he left with an ankle injury. So that's not the. I mean, it wasn't
the silver lining. No.
But
at least we had that last week. I mean, the one thing last week we could say was like hey, at least the Chargers running back looks like a legitimate bona fide first round running back. And I didn't think he did anything today to change that. I thought Omarion looked really good today with the limited space he was given. And even that, you can't feel good about. So I just, man, it's getting harder and harder to find the silver linings in these games.
I liked what I saw from Kamani Vidal. He ran the ball hard.
Yeah, but you know what Vidal's going to do. He did that all preseason long. He is who he is. He's a hard-nosed runner, north and south. Going to embrace contact, going to look for it and try and run through it. But going back to Hampton for a quick second, we talked about this previous weeks. Like, we get in a spot where now we have to run the ball. We don't have an offensive line to where we can sit back and throw the ball. So you have to lean more on the run game. I love seeing how often we were throwing him the ball. Yeah. We don't see that enough, right? And he's clearly capable of catching the ball and making something shake with it. So I love seeing that. So D-Wade, it's some silver linings in there, right? You know, and obviously I think this was out of necessity, right? I have to get the ball out of my hands quick, so I gotta go to the back, screen passes to him and all that. So there was as terrible of a game as this was. There were very brief moments where you could say, okay, that's something that we could build upon.
Yeah, I mean, I think truly, if you're trying to look hard for silver linings, like I thought they did a better. I think they did a better job in the first half trying to get Ladd McConkey involved, right? And I think you saw it with that touchdown. But there was a couple times Ladd McConkey bailed them out of bad situations. So I think a continued kind of focus on getting him the football, because it feels like he's really close to kind of breaking a long one too, because he does have that ability. I think that is good. I thought the Chargers came out with a brilliant game plan. Like, if you want to talk about good, I thought they came out with a really, really good game plan. They were running the ball effectively in the first half. They knew they didn't have the protection. They were keeping the Washington Commanders defense off balance, and then it all unraveled. I mean, you're talking about, God, it's going to feel like this is a just blast Trey Pipkins podcast, but look back at what happened. The Chargers go up 7-0. They're driving again. Quentin Johnston catches a ball on 1st and 10. He ends up getting just short of the first down, right? After that, it's 2nd and 1. They convert. False start, Trey Pipkins. Now it's 2nd and 6. Now you back-to-back incompletions. Now you're coming up with only 3 points on a drive that still should have been going. And there was just a bunch of plays like that throughout the game. But I did think that Greg Roman came out with a good game plan. The problem is, when you get behind, you can't go with that game plan anymore. When things are equal and game flow allows it, you can stay consistently running the football and keep the defense off balance. If you get a false start, if you get a holding call, you're pushed behind the sticks, you can't run it like you can for 3 yards of carry. 3 yards of carry doesn't kill you on first down. 2nd and 7 is fine. You can stay ahead of the sticks that way. You cannot run the ball on 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 20 or 3rd and 7. And when they were able to keep it 3rd and 2, right? 3rd and 1, quarterback sneak. Right, 3rd and 2, quick pass, Keenan Allen, conversion. You can do that, and you can get away with it with this bad offensive line. Now, when you're taking sacks, when you're getting penalties, and you're putting your offensive line in a situation where now it's 2nd and 28 or 2nd and 33, all that good game planning goes out the window, because now you have to drop back and pass. And not only that, they know you're going to drop back and pass, and they know there's nothing you can do about it. And I think the game plan itself was good. Omarion Hampton looked good. The problem is that was all game flow determined. So once that fumble happens, once the Commanders get on the board, once you get behind, all that goes out the window.
Here's Parsley. I don't feel like this is hyperbole when I say this was one of the most disgraceful displays I've ever seen as a Chargers fan. Absolutely unmotivated, uninspired garbage on all 3 phases. I didn't think it was. I thought there was just a lot of, especially on defense. I don't think I've seen the defense be that haphazard, right? Like, it didn't seem uninspired to me. At times I felt like they lacked energy, but they missed. So I haven't seen the defense be that sort of discombobulated in a while. They were running into each other and just missing tackles, bad tackling. Tom Brady called it out multiple times. He's like, this is just poor tackling, right? And you could put a lot of it on the fact that Krosky Merritt had a nice game, but I think the Chargers tackling today was so, like, I'd grade their tackling at D minus. I mean, it was just bad. And I don't know. And maybe that's what he's talking about with the uninspired aspect of things. But when you look at this defense, KB, I was just surprised at how bad they were. Like, I don't think I've seen them play this poorly in a while.
Yeah, this was very surprising. But again, this goes back to last week, right? This is a continuance of what we've seen from the defense last week. Missed tackles, allowing Dart to get outside the pocket and run. We see the same thing this week with Jaden Daniels being able to use his leg and extend drives. We see missed tackles, which we rarely see from Derwin. We see missed tackle that turns into a huge gain. But not only that, we see, you talked about it, Pete, with Troy Dye and Derwin running into each other, which allowed the touchdown on the outside zone play. So I said it earlier, this was a lack of discipline, right? It was a lack of discipline, and sometimes it's a want to, right? Just reaching to grab a guy, that's not wanting to make the tackle. Me going and putting my face mask and my shoulder pads on him and wrapping him up, that's a want to, that's a desire. And oftentimes today, that want to wasn't there. It was almost like somebody was waiting on somebody else to make the play for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to piggyback off of it, I mean, I think the one thing, the funny thing about the Chargers defense pre-Jesse Minter and the Brandon Staley defense was that Brandon Staley, in theory, could have had a good defense, but it needed every player to be on the same page on every play and be passing guys off to other guys and knowing where everyone was, and it just always turned into constant blown coverages, and it never worked out. With Jesse Minter, the one thing that you could say through even, most of 4 weeks was they were a pretty connected unit, right? Like where it's like everyone was where they were supposed to be. Guys were fitting the run. I mean, you're talking about run fits. Oh God, like the amount of missed run fits today without even knowing what the exact play was. I can, point out 5 plays where somebody's just not in the right spot, not in a gap they're supposed to be. But to an extent, you're right. Like, if you can't tackle, it's hard to be a good defense. And if you can't tackle and you're missing tackles, you need extra energy. You need to attack it with numbers, especially when you're going up against a guy like Deebo Samuel or a guy like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, right? Like, you can't always, even Cam Scatterby, like they had moments last week, but towards that second half, they were rallying to the football. And even when the first guy wouldn't bring down Scatterby, there was 2 other guys there ready to make a play. When somebody missed a tackle today, there was nobody behind him to make that play. And I think so a certain part of it is there's always going to be missed tackles, but when one of your guys misses a tackles, first of all, they either need to be corralling that ball carrier and pushing him back to the inside where their help is, right? Or have other guys there that are rallying to the football and limiting the damage. And I don't think we saw any of that. I hate to, question players' effort, and I'm not going to do that, but it does feel like there was just times where the energy wasn't there, and part of that could have just been because the offense was a disaster, and maybe they even got gassed a little bit, but it has to be better. If you tackle that poorly, you're not going to win.
I'm kind of surprised by this, but at the same time, not really. People are coming after Harbaugh, Minter, all of them. Harbaugh's culture change, wake up, it's the same crap by the end of the year. Harbaugh and Spanos won't be talking to each other. I look at this and I feel like there are coaching breakdowns that have happened. I said at the start of the show, I feel like there were strange calls. I don't know, like offensive calls from Greg Roman. And I'm like, what is that? Last week we were talking about it. Why did they not run the ball more from a guy that likes to run the ball? And at this point, when you look at what's going on with the offensive line, it feels to me like they have to out scheme the other team. They have to be more. There's no other option for them. They have to be more creative in some way, shape, or form and try to figure out a way to get some time for Herbie. And whether it's, have him scramble out of the pocket a little bit more frequently or something. I don't know exactly, but to me, it feels like the scheming aspect of this has to be better, KB. When you look at what they get into next week, the offensive line, as you pointed out, Daniel, is going to be better because Alt will be back and that will help for sure. But I don't know that it's the panacea to fix what's wrong with this Charger team. I feel like they just have to be smarter than everybody else and maybe play a little bit harder.
When we talk about Alt coming back next week, do we know how healthy the guy's coming off of a high ankle sprain, right? That's not a 1 week injury. I played in Tampa Bay with Tristan Wirfs, and he had a high ankle sprain. That's a pretty big human being, right? He tried to play, but ended up hurting himself more and pushing him out even further. So again, how healthy is Joe Alt going to? Is it a rush back situation now where I see my guys need me, I'm trying to rush back, or oftentimes in the league, let's talk about it. Let's say it. Coaches and medical staffs will rush you back before it's time for you to come back. Hey, we need you out there. We need you to play. Oh, you're good, and then you go out there and you're not good. So, hearing that, I'm not too excited about it. I want him to be there, right, as Joe Alt, but I'm not too excited about that. But to your point about scheming, I don't care what kind of scheme I can come up with as an offensive coordinator. If I don't have an offensive line that can protect my quarterback, the scheme is good for nothing. I can run all these trick plays and do this and do that. But at the end of the day, I can't run trick plays and try and outwit you on the offense. Sometimes I got to just pull my pants up, drop my ball. I don't know. That's what I say. I don't know if I can say that on here. I don't know if I can say that on here.
You know where he's going.
Yeah, let me will it
Put
back
him on
in.
the table.
Yeah, and we got to play grown man football. Yeah. But if I don't have the talent in front of me to do that, then scheme is not necessarily going to work.
Well,
let me throw this
real
out
quick.
there.
Let me put this out there too, though, real quick, to piggyback off what Kenyon said, just real quick, because you're playing another bad team next week in the Dolphins. Yeah. They have Jalen Phillips and Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb. And I don't want, 70% of Joe Alt is better than what you have right now, and it's not close. I'll say that. The problem is to Kenyon's point, can you imagine the whole 2025 season without Joe Alt after you've already lost Rashawn Slater? If you put him out there and he re-aggravates it or makes it worse, now you can ship your season away because you're seeing how bad they are without him. So as much as you want him back, even if he's better at 80%, unless there's a minimal chance to re-aggravate that high ankle sprain, you can't put him out there. And if you can't put him out there, it's going to be a long day.
So Sneaker Flavors says, did we give up on this season not making any changes or picking up new offensive linemen? I don't think they've given up. Is there an opportunity that we're not, because everyone's like, they need to improve this offensive line. We all realize that. Is there an opportunity that's out there that we're kind of missing that we feel like Ortiz is not approaching and not taking advantage of that would make, is there an opportunity to improve this offensive line by making deals? Like, can you just push all your chips to the center and say, we got to improve this offensive line and that will solve everything? Is it possible?
If we're talking about, we talked about this last week, right? Making a trade or doing something like that. If you're talking about from that standpoint, yeah, that there's something that you can do. But if you're talking about this team going into the same pool that all 31 other teams are pulling guys from, there's clearly nothing in the talent pool that is going to suffice and help what we need, right? We're bringing guys in, we're working guys out. I'm sure that, again, there are going to be some offensive linemen being worked out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm sure of it. But when the talent is just not there to pull from, what can you do? And we said last week, it's too soon to make trades. Who are you going to trade for, and who are teams willing to trade, right? I'm just not certain that there is anything that you can do at this point in time in the season that is going to change what we're experiencing outside of guys getting healthy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the thing is that the time to do it was in the offseason. And it brings me back to a press conference that general manager Joe Ortiz had after, Mekhi Becton was the big signing and they didn't take any interior linemen in the draft until the 6th round and Branson Taylor was cut coming out of camp. When he asked him, do you think you did enough to improve the interior of the offensive line? And Joe Ortiz, visibly upset, was like, we won 11 games last year, Pop. That's pretty good. That's a terrible answer. I hated it then. I hate it more right now, right? This is a team that told us offensive linemen are weapons. That's why we took Joe Alt with the top 5 pick. For sure, and you did. You can't replace the 2 tackles that you lost, and I get that. But the interior offensive line, you won in spite of last year. Not because of, you won in spite of that interior offensive line last year. So when you go into the offseason and you have 3 dudes, Trey Pipkins, Jamari Sawyer, and Zion Johnson, or Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins, and Zion Johnson, that aren't the answer, and you so clearly see that. Jamari Sawyer comes in, he's still not the answer. How do you come out of that offseason upgrading maybe one of the position? And they did such a bad job of actually bringing in competition for the guys who failed last year that you have Zion Johnson trying to play center for most of training camp and Bradley Bozeman trying to play guard, as if switching 2 of the guys who are a big part of the problem was going to fix what you have. No, it's bad team building. They didn't invest in it in their first 2 drafts. They had 1 pick in Mekhi Becton, who might be good. We don't know it because we can't see him on the field right now. And I'm not blaming him for injuries, but when you take a guy like Mekhi Becton is the only potential answer for an upgrade on the interior of our offensive line as a guy who has had a history of injuries, it's hard to say, okay, well, now we did it. Everything's good now. And what have we seen? It's played out in the worst way possible. And it's a lot harder to hide the 2 tackles you're missing when the 3 guys who were already the problem are still there. There's not one guy you can hide. You can't hide 4 bad offensive linemen. You just can't do it. And that the time to fix it has passed us.
Yeah.
Is it time to start tanking? That's what some people are asking.
I hate that. What are we talking about?
For a draft pick. Kenny says Ortiz had so much money to work with, and we only signed one new offensive line, which is what you just said, Daniel.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. I hate being
Pete's getting me all worked up.
A negative naysayer, a negative Nancy. But hey, here's some good news. The Titans figured out a way to win, so the Chargers can win too. Except the only bad news about that is, if the Titans had an offensive lineman that the Chargers could maybe, try to obtain, now maybe they don't want to because they won a game. So,
but that's the thing too, is like what bad team, because bad teams usually have young quarterbacks, want to send, their offensive lineman away. Like the Giants are going to be 1-4. Are they going to just put Jackson Dart out there to just get steamrolled every week?
Absolutely
no.
Not.
Are the Titans going to take an offensive lineman away from Cam Ward in his first year of development? No. So that's the problem, is the bad teams usually have young quarterbacks, and the bad teams usually don't have great offensive linemen. Maybe theoretically their guys are out there. Maybe they go on the block in a couple of weeks. The problem is now, you haven't invested enough in the offensive line. Now do you want to send 2026 and 2027 draft capital, where you've already shifted off a pick from each of those draft classes, to invest in this team that probably needs 3 new offensive linemen? That, I think, is the better question.
It is a black cloud hanging over our head, to be sure, and that's putting it mildly. It's the Locked On Chargers Squad Show on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. Kenyon Barner, 10 years in the league. Daniel Wade, host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, which you'll be doing with David here in just a little bit. We have one more segment where we talk about Kenyon's favorite subject, special teams. We'll be right back. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that first bet is a winner. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets across the app to use anywhere you want. Baseball postseason is underway and rolling. We got basketball right around the corner. Hockey is about to get underway. And, of course, the NFL season is in full swing. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Well, there's a lot to point your finger at that didn't go well for the Chargers today. And I guess not forcing a punt is one of those, but they did get 4 kicks returned, all by KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith.
They also did force a punt, Pete. Don't forget. They forced one, right? And what happened? They ran into him in the back of the end zone, and they converted it 4th and 15. And what happened on that?
Touchdown.
Touchdown. They turned that into points. I didn't even write that down as a note because I was like, oh, God, that could have and should have been the turning point of the game.
17-7.
Jeez, that was tough. I totally forgot about that. Salt in the wound. KLS 88 yards, 25-yard line. I thought he looked good. Is he getting better? KB, are you liking more of what you're seeing from him?
I still need to see more. I do. Like it's not a large enough sample size for me to make a fair assessment of who he is as a returner, right? So I'm never going to judge somebody off of something that there's not a lot of evidence there, right? There's not a lot of repetition there. So talk to me a couple more games. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Talk to me a couple more games into the season when he's had more reps and more opportunities. But going back to that roughing the kicker or roughing the punter penalty, we talk about special team units being momentum shifting phase of the game, right? When we oftentimes talk about that in a way of being in our favor, but that was a clear example of how a negative play on a positive play can shift momentum completely out of your favor and back into the favor of your opponent's team, because that was a phenomenal return by Ladd. Absolutely phenomenal. Loved it. Got to the one thing we want to touch the paint at all times as a returner, so to finally see that and have that. And then to get the penalty, it completely takes the wind out of your sail. It was like demoralizing. It was like, we had one good thing. We had it. Yeah. And then it just completely took it out of you. We talked about – go ahead.
I was just gonna say in the comments, many people were like that was the game changer. That cost us the game.
Yeah.
You know? I think
Quentin Johnston.
Yeah,
I
I
those
think
are the
Quentin
two.
Johnston fumble. I don't think it cost him the game, but it definitely changed the tide. And
But it's 17-7 at that point, right?
Yeah.
If you get that touchdown, and like that's what sucks so bad too. It must be awful for these players. Is like you can't even celebrate after you make a good play because you're too busy waiting to see the flag that's on your team. And when you have 25 of them over 2 weeks, how do you even celebrate? I mean, my only celebration, if I was, vicariously living through one of these players, would be to just look around for flags on the ground to see if I could actually get excited about it or not. But yeah, I mean, it's 17-7 at that point, and they already had used some of their timeouts to try to get the ball back. They probably, maybe they score again before half, but you're probably talking about a 17-7 halftime lead. And Pete, last week with JD, what did we talk about, right? Late in that game against the Giants, they had them backed up on the goal line, right? And they were not aggressive. They went for return, they went to set up a return, I should say, instead of trying to go for the punt block. This week they go for the punt block and it bites them, right? So it's like, maybe now I know why they didn't do it last week, because they can't trust their players not to make a game-changing boneheaded mistake.
Cameron Dicker from 55, easy peasy lemon squeezy for him. And J.K. Scott had a better game. That's good news.
He had a phenomenal punt right before the half, pinning those guys almost inside the 5. That was an absolute bomb that he dropped. That was beautiful.
That's what led to the Ladd touchdown. That was J.K. Scott should be upset too, because his great punt did what it's supposed to do. You have him backed up, you get off the field, you force a punt, and then you just blow it. Like it just, it has to be demoralizing in all 3 phases of the game to see each one of them not being able to pick the other one up and kind of continuing to, let the spiral happen.
We've mentioned Krosky Merritt's name a bunch today for running the ball. He caught 2 balls for 39 yards. And Debo, we talked about it during the week, KB, that Debo is the guy you got to pay attention to. He was fantastic today. 8 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. And, he made it look easy. And I'm not surprised. He's a heck of a player. But he deserves a little bit of credit as part of this win for the Commanders.
Absolutely.
People are saying in the chat that, look, the Commanders just beat us. They played well. Yes, they did, but the Chargers did not play well. It wasn't like they just beat them. There was a bunch of things that did not go well again for the Chargers, and we just have to hope that the offensive line, finds some sort of divine intervention, and hopefully that is Joe Alt coming back next week, and that will and coming in to face a bad team, So. I think that's about all I have. You guys have any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
Not good one. Shout out to Tierra Tart, right? I mean, a bad day for the defense. One guy we didn't talk about, Tierra Tart, forced a fumble that at that point, in a 10-point game could have flipped things. Still plenty of time left. He got the Chargers' first strip and recovery of the season. So shout out to Tierra Tart, and in a day that looked like not a lot of people wanted to play defense, can't say it about him.
One final comment here I think is kind of funny. Herbert needs to learn how to not get sacked.
Where
do you want him to go? Where do you want if you have one bad offensive lineman and you can run the opposite way, you can do that. When 3 guys are losing, where is he supposed to go? Where is he supposed to run? He was their leading rusher.
You must love big men cuddling him because there's nothing there. It doesn't run. That's not true.
Let's get rid of him.
Thoughts on that, KB?
I won't waste my breath.
And it's gonna go on Herbert too. That's the part that bites me, man. Is I've watched every snap of this dude's career multiple times, and it's gonna come back on Justin Herbert with the people who aren't really seeing what's actually happening in this game. And that's what the infuriating part of this is at the end of the day, tomorrow you're gonna have these people going on the morning talk shows and being like, guess Justin Herbert MVP talk through 3 weeks was a little bit early to say. It's like, have you seen what happened to him the last 2 weeks? The man's been absolutely drilled and just killed on every time he drops back more than a 3-step drop.
And listen, it'll go on Herbert, but we threw Trey Lance in there at the end of the game. And what happens as soon as he gets in there? Sack. So it's not a Justin Herbert issue. It's a protection issue. I can get the ball out of my hands as fast as I want, as quick as I want. If my guys aren't ready, then I have to allow the play to develop. So it's not he's holding on to the ball. No, listen, I'm a quarterback. My job is to throw the ball. And sometimes I just can't get away, and he could not get away today.
Here's a good final thought. I'm at BJ's drinking my life away.
Well, don't drive. Don't drink and drive, brother. Call an Uber. Call an Uber.
Daniel Wade, Kenyon Barner. I am Pete Fox. It's the Locked On Chargers Squad Show on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. We'll catch you guys during the week, Thursday, KB and JD and I, and then Daniel Wade and David coming up here in just a little bit. So make sure you check those guys out for more talk about this lovely disaster. And we'll be back next Sunday as the Chargers take on the Dolphins. Take care. Have a good night, guys. See you later.